Have you ever felt the silence of your home so deeply it seems to echo with every memory? That's how my night began. My name's Margaret Maggie. To most and after decades in the same little suburban house, the quiet has a weight all its own. On this particular evening, the cicadas outside my window formed a relentless chorus, and the soft light of my old bedside lamp barely pushed back the darkness. Now, you might imagine a 72-year-old widow's life is peaceful, even dull, but there's an ache in empty rooms, especially when they once rang with laughter. Lately, my grandson Ethan, 15 years old, soulful, observant, had been staying with me while his parents weathered their own storm. Let me tell you, there's a technical term for what I was feeling that night: ambient grief. It's not a sharp pain, but a persistent hum, like static in the background. Just as I was surrendering to sleep, a faint knock broke the pattern, a tiny, uncertain sound, so soft I almost thought I'd dreamed it. Then, the door creaked open, and there stood Ethan, barefoot, hair tousled, wearing that look kids get when there's a battle raging inside. He whispered, "Grandma?" And for a heartbeat, I knew this was one of those moments. The kind that changes everything, if you're brave enough to lean in. What happened next wasn't the stuff of grand gestures or dramatic speeches. It was a simple question: "Can I talk to you?" And in that instant, the heavy silence was broken not by noise, but by the courage it takes to ask for help in the dark. Have you ever seen someone carrying an invisible weight? That night, Ethan's shoulders were slumped under a burden he'd never voiced, not to his parents, and until now, not to me. He began, in halting words, to unravel the knot of guilt and self-blame he'd been twisting inside himself for months. He confessed, "Mom and Dad fight all the time. At home, it's like there's no peace. Sometimes I feel like it's my fault. If I were different, maybe they'd be happy." My heart broke a little. This is what psychologists call internalization, where children turn family conflict into self-doubt. But to Ethan, it just felt like the world pressing down. Now, maybe you're thinking, why didn't he speak up sooner? But imagine being 15, unsure if you're allowed to need help. The stigma around emotional vulnerability, especially for boys, can be crushing. I told him, "It's not your job to fix the grown-ups. You're not broken, sweetheart, you're human." For the first time, I watched relief pass across his face, a micro-expression, as neurologists would call it, that told me he was finally letting go. He admitted he'd been afraid I'd be disappointed, that sharing his feelings was a weakness. But here's the truth. True strength is found in the act of reaching out. That night, Ethan took the bravest step of all he let himself be seen. Let me ask you, have you ever felt invisible? Like the world spinning past and you're standing still? As the clock ticked past 2, Ethan whispered his deepest fear. "Sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere, like I'm invisible." That's what psychologists call social alienation. It's not about being alone. It's about feeling unseen, even in a crowd. I looked at him, thinking of all the moments he'd watched from the sidelines, unnoticed but never uncaring. I said, "You belong right here, Ethan. Sometimes people are too busy with their own storms to see your light, but it's still shining." Now, you might be wondering, can a few words really make a difference? In that moment, they did. Sometimes reassurance is like an anchor in choppy waters. It doesn't stop the storm, but it keeps you from drifting away. We talked for hours about his fears, his dreams, even about his dog that he missed so much. I listened, truly listened, because sometimes what heals us isn't advice, but the feeling of being heard. By the time dawn crept in, Ethan finally slept, tucked into the guest bed in my room. He whispered, "Thank you, Grandma. I don't feel so alone anymore." And lying there, I realized sometimes the deepest connections are forged in the quietest hours, when love is the only answer left. So what happens after the night you share your secret burdens? In the weeks that followed, I saw a quiet transformation in Ethan. He smiled more, laughed without that guarded edge, and even found the courage to open up to his parents. Was everything fixed overnight? Of course not. Family dynamics, what therapists call systemic patterns, don't change with a single conversation. But here's the magic. The silence was broken. The difference between isolation and healing is often just one safe place, a person who listens without judgment. I found, too, that being that person gave my own life a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to wake up grateful. Now, you might ask, does love really heal old wounds? Maybe not all at once, but it's the salve that gives us strength to face another day. In my own heart, I carried a new lesson, that even in our later years, we can be someone's anchor, and sometimes that's enough. So, if you're listening tonight and your house feels too quiet, remember, the most powerful moments can happen in whispers and tears, not shouts and grand gestures. Healing is never loud. It's found in the small, soft hours, when we dare to let someone in. And sometimes, as dawn breaks after a long night, you realize the silence is no longer empty, but filled with hope.